Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a former hot dog seller that spent 9 years in Russian prisons, who's become one of the highest profile individuals in the Ukraine war, Yevgeny Prigozhin.
The battle for Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine has been notable for several reasons. Its length, 9+ months. Its savagery, tens of thousands of Ukrainians and Russians, mostly soldiers, have died there. And for the man who's pressed the fight for the Kremlin, the mercenary leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Prigozhin and his Wagner paramilitary group are now the tip of the spear for Russia in Ukraine.
In Russian-occupied Bakhmut, one man has stolen the spotlight. Days after declaring victory, Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin congratulates his fighters and orders them to leave.
We're pulling units out of Bakhmut. We're transferring positions, ammunition to the military, everything. But if the military are in a tough situation, of course, we're leaving those who played a crucial part in capturing Bakhmut.
Prigozhin's private military group has led the fighting in the months-long bloody battle that turned Bakhmut into a ruin. Most of Wagner's fighters are convicted Russian criminals. This video went viral last year of a man believed to be Prigozhin recruiting prisoners from a penal colony. They were promised freedom for 6 months of frontline service, their lives treated as expendable. Prigozhin says 20,000 Wagner mercenaries were killed in Bakhmut.
This is a military that is so challenged with its manpower, with its ammunition, with its supplies, that it has had to turn to the use of prisoners and thrown them into what Prigozhin has called the Bakhmut meat grinder.
So in today's episode, we'll have a look at Yevgeny Prigozhin's story, how he created the Wagner Group, why it's become such a critical part of the Ukraine war. We'll have a look at some of his controversial statements with regards to the war. And then finally today, I'll wrap up with my summary as to what I think is likely to happen over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, particularly with regards to his recent statements about a potential revolution in Russia. Yevgeny Prigozhin was born on the 1st of June 1961 in St. Petersburg. At 18 years of age, he was caught stealing and given a suspended sentence. And 2 years later, he was convicted of robbery and fraud and sentenced to 12 years imprisonment. He spent the following 9 years in prison, but was later pardoned and was released in 1990. Immediately following his release from prison, he sold hot dogs alongside his mother in St. Petersburg. And during the 1990s, he was involved in the establishment and expansion of a variety of different businesses following the breakup of the Soviet Union. In 1995, Prigozhin entered the restaurant business and founded a floating restaurant on a boat that became one of the most fashionable dining spots in the whole of Russia. And it was whilst running this restaurant that he first became associated with President Putin and was later referred to as Putin's chef.
Yevgeny Prigozhin is a complex man with a complex history and very complex ambitions. He served a 10-year sentence for violent crimes that he committed in St. Petersburg as a young man. He worked in hard labor camps, and when he came out, he kind of transformed himself into this kind of mafia entrepreneur.
One of his first ventures was a catering company that fed the Kremlin. Prigozhin became known as Putin's chef. Cooking up disinformation came next with the Internet Research Agency, a troll farm which was instrumental in Russia's interference in the 2016 U.S. election. Prigozhin has now transformed into warlord under the auspices of Vladimir Putin. He's used social media to accelerate his brand. Videos show him overseeing training sites. He appeals to new recruits with ultra-nationalist propaganda.
Guys, sign up for Wagner Group private military company. World War III is already nigh.
On the battlefield, he flaunts the coffins of dead Ukrainian soldiers. And he brazenly calls out Russia's Ministry of Defense for the death of his fighters, hurling insults at the defense minister and chief of staff and calling them out by name.
We have a 70% shortage of ammunition. Shoigu, Gerasimov, where is the ammunition? Look at them.
Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. And we're not talking about some weird mind voodoo where your crazy neighbour tells you that you should wear a pumpkin on your head. We're talking about today's sponsor Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong, so instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, fume is completely natural. Instead of vapour, fume uses flavoured air. And instead of harmful chemicals, fume uses all natural delicious flavours. So instead of bad, fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. The fume device is made from real wood, is really well weighted, perfectly balanced, extremely fun to fidget with, and comes with 3 refreshing flavours. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. So far, Fume has served over 100,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, so there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com/JoeBlogs or scan the QR code and use code JoeBlogs to get 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today.
The Wagner Group started in 2014 as a secret arm of Russian intelligence. Originally made up of former Special Forces soldiers, the group was first deployed to Ukraine in 2014 during Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea. Then to Syria, where Russia supports President Bashar al-Assad's government. Wagner serves as Russia's military proxy in far-flung areas of the world. Before the recent fighting in Ukraine, Wagner left Russian footprints across Africa, spreading Moscow's influence and feeding instability. Researchers say there are thousands of Wagner mercenaries in about a dozen countries. It has links to the ongoing conflict in Sudan. The U.S. said it gave weapons to Sudan's paramilitary faction. It has also fueled the civil war in the Central African Republic and aided the anti-Western pro-Russian military junta in Mali, accused of war crimes. The Kremlin uses Wagner as a tool, says New America's Candace Rondeau.
They're really important for Putin in terms of diverting attention away from Russian activities in places where they're not supposed to be operating. They fulfill the role of circumventing sanctions, and they turn to the Wagner Group as the kind of enforcer and sort of mercenary service provider, and in exchange they get gold, diamonds, oil, gas, things that are exportable and that can be turned into hard dollars, hard cash, which is extremely important for Russia.
The war in Ukraine helped Prigozhin bring the Wagner Group out of the shadows and grow it into a private military empire.
Because of this war and because of the ambitions of Prigozhin, well, quite quickly, the group emerged as the most visible part of the Russian military. Now we have billboards advertising Wagner on the streets of Russian cities, a completely unprecedented thing.
Wagner Group has launched a unique recruitment drive straight out of a Hollywood thriller. The chief of the Wagner Group is personally touring Russian prisons. Apparently, that's their talent pool. Prisoners. He's said to have toured 17 prisons and is recruiting 1,000 criminals as mercenaries.
Минимальный возраст, который мы берем, это 22 года. Если моложе, бумажка от ближайших родственников, что они не против. Максимальный возраст условно, это 50 лет, но если крепкий, прямо здесь на собеседовании делаем элементарные тесты, смотрим, насколько крепок, физическая форма крайне необходима. Смотрим, насколько ты крепок, и тогда принимаем решение и берем. Первые заключенные, которые воевали со мной, это было 1 июня. Кто нам нужен? Нам нужны только штурмовики. 60% моих парней штурмовики. С полгода уходите домой, получив помилование. Те, кто хочет остаться с нами, остается с нами. Поэтому вариантов вернуться на зону нет никаких. Те, кто приезжает и в первый день говорит, куда-то я не туда попал, мы делаем отметку «дезертир», и после этого следует расстрел. 5 минут на раздумье, пока мы туда заходим. Дальше, пока здесь, решайте. Кто хочет, едет.
What do these people get in return? A way out of prison for sure, a presidential pardon, and a competitive salary, not to mention a free hand to kill. Reports say the new recruits get some basic training and then they're sent directly to the front lines. How much do they earn? $3,000. The salary also covers a so-called coffin payment, meaning if the mercenary is killed, his or her family gets a free coffin to bury him. Look at this poster now. It was spotted in the Russian city of Yekaterinburg. What does the poster say? Orchestra Wagner waiting for you, meaning come join the Wagner Group. Reports say billboards like these have become a common sight in many Russian cities. They're part of Wagner's efforts to make Russians join its ranks. These posters also reveal the group's evolution during the war. In just a few months, they've gone from being a secret mercenary body to an extension of Russia's military apparatus in Ukraine.
The Russian mercenary force, the Wagner Group. Those private troops under the orders of a Russian oligarch have played a major role in Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
A victory tour of Bakhmut for the man who's boasted that 20,000 of the fighters he deployed there lost their lives for Mother Russia. Today, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner Group, put out pictures of himself congratulating his forces and announcing their withdrawal.
What's up, lads? That's it. Moving out in 10 to 15 minutes. Everyone leaves before June 1st. We'll rest and prepare and then get a new task. Transfer all positions to the military.
Мы выводим подразделение из Бахмута. Сейчас 5 утра. 25 мая до 1 июня основная часть перебазируется в тыловые лагеря. Передаем позиции военным боекомплект, организация, управление, вооружение, подготовка. Влияло два фактора и два человека, которых мы оставляем военных. Подойдите ко мне, парни. Бибер и Долик. Вот это Бибер, вот это Долик. Поэтому, как только военным будет трудно, то они встанут и преградят путь украинской армии. Парни, не обижайте военных. Ладно? Хорошо. Все. Если что, они вместе с ними.
За время ведения операции я выбрал 50 тысяч заключенных, из которых погибло около 20%. Их погибло ровно столько же, сколько и тех, кто пришел к нам по контракту. Ну, без зон имеется в виду. Приблизительно еще 20% это те, кто ранены и имеют те ранения, которые не дают возможность там от 3 месяцев и более выполнять боевые задачи. И поэтому соотношение следующее. 50 тысяч бойцов ВСУ мы уничтожили. Ориентировочно, трудно подсчитать это точно, 50-70 тысяч имеют.
Prigozhin, like a court jester, appears to have a license to speak openly about how useless regular Russian forces are and how he despises the Minister of Defense and the Moscow elite, whose children are not dying on the battlefield.
His latest provocative proclamation that Russia could lose the war and face a revolt.
All these divisions can end in revolution, just like in 1917. First, the soldiers will rise. Then, after that, their loved ones. It's wrong to think that there are hundreds of them. There are already tens of thousands, the relatives of those who've been killed. And probably there will be hundreds of thousands. We cannot avoid that.
When you hear Prigozhin saying, there is not enough ammunition, we're not getting the help that we need, we don't have the supplies that we need, he says things that Putin isn't able to say politically about what's going on with the war. And we certainly have seen that in bold display in recent days.
Despite his audacious outbursts against the Kremlin elite, Putin needs Prigozhin, at least for now.
The thing people need to understand is that Prigozhin is always conscious of the fact, like many who are close to Putin, that he is expendable, that at any time Putin could decide, I don't need you anymore, your services are no longer useful to me, or, more importantly, you're becoming a danger to me, you're becoming a threat to me.
So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I wanted to post this video because I think the way that the Ukraine war has unfolded has been really fascinating. Normally when there's a conflict, we talk about the countries involved, the two parties that are fighting that war. And it's very rare these days that we get to know the individuals involved. And of course, the main reason for that is when there's a war, it's usually just two armies that are fighting. But in Ukraine, we've got something very different. Russia has been utilising the Wagner Group, who are not part of the Russian armed forces. These are private individuals that have been hired by a company to go and support the war effort. And as we've seen in today's video, this is something that's been going on for the last 10 years or so. But with the advent and development of social media, Wagner's involvement in the Ukraine war has taken a completely different perspective, because Yevgeny Prigozhin has been posting regularly on Telegram, telling people exactly what's going on at the front line, and he likes to personally appear in these videos and express his emotions. And remarkably, a lot of the videos that he's posted have been quite negative in terms of the amount of support that his group has been receiving from the Russian authorities, and he's spoken out directly against a number of very senior Russian officials. And as we saw earlier, in one of his most recent videos, he's talking about the potential for another revolution in Russia. And all of this is very unusual because high-profile Russian individuals are usually supportive of President Putin's official stance. And I think this underlines the importance of the Wagner Group. Yevgeny Prigozhin and his 50,000 mercenary soldiers are vital to Russia's efforts right now. But it will be really interesting to see whether that situation continues, and if it doesn't, whether or not Yevgeny Prigozhin continues to make regular posts on Telegram speaking out against the Russian authorities. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode, you found it useful, informative and thought-provoking. If you've liked what I said, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end, and here's something to put a smile on your face.